In 1945, in the aftermath of the Second World War, a transformative Labour government was elected on a promise to win the peace. Instead of returning to the old, unfair and unequal society of the past, they promised to build a country for the future and for the people. They created the NHS, they built the welfare state, and they built millions of council homes. They brought industries into public ownership to be run for the people, not private profit. They borrowed to invest, they taxed the richest, and they set out to eradicate poverty and unemployment. Madam Deputy Speaker, they faced a country brought to its knees by war. It was a crisis like no other, but they rose to that challenge. Today, as we emerge from the pandemic, we too face crises like no other. A crisis of public health, with a government that let bodies pile high in their thousands and underfunded the NHS for a decade. A crisis of poverty, inequality, and unemployment, with a government that hands out billions in dodgy contracts to wealthy Tory donors but refuses to give working-class kids food in the holidays. And looming over us, a climate crisis that threatens the future of us all. Madam Deputy Speaker, this is not a time to tinker around the edges. It's not a time to return to the old, unfair and unequal society and economic model that got us here in the first place. It's time to match the scale of the challenges we face with an ambition like the Labour government had in 1945. That's why at the heart of this Queen's speech should be a People's Green New Deal, a state-led programme of economic transformation to build a country that can not only avert the climate emergency, but truly one that works for the 99%, not just the 1%. It's a programme designed and discussed by trade unionists and think tanks, activists and policy experts that would create millions of well-paid, unionised, skilled green jobs. By mass investment in green technologies, expanding and electrifying public transport, building electric vehicles with investments in gigafactories like in places like Coventry, creating a national care service, and retrofitting the country's homes, cutting both costs and carbon, from an economy controlled and run for profit to a society that is working for all of us. To do this, you need to bring industries into public ownership. That's rail, mail, water, energy and more. And you need to empower workers. That means repealing anti-trade union laws so the needs of the many come before the greed of the few. This programme could revitalise industries in Coventry, across the West Midlands and the country. It would kickstart a green industrial revolution, building everything from electric cars to wind turbines. And while we do this, we need to be tackling inequality, raising the minimum wage and ending poverty pay once and for all. Giving our NHS workers a 15% pay rise to make up for a decade of lost pay. And raising taxes on the very richest and the biggest businesses, with a windfall tax on corporations that have made obscene profits during the pandemic. Madam Deputy Speaker, a programme like this can rise to the challenges we face. It meets the needs of the people and takes on the fossil fuel billionaires that are polluting our planet. That's what a true people's government would do. But that's not what this Queen's speech is doing. Instead, it tries to take us back to business as usual, to the rigged economy of the past. And let's look what's in it. Reforms to planning and the NHS. We've seen what Tory reforms mean. It means cuts and deregulation, creating the next generation of slum housing. That's not what I'm saying, that's what the President of the Royal Institute of British Architects has warned about the White Paper. Today, a campaign to protect rural England branch has called the plans a disaster. Health academics have described the NHS White Paper, and I quote, as consolidating the market paradigm in the NHS. And while there's promised new laws for property developers and private healthcare companies, there's absolutely nothing about workers' rights. There's not a sight of the promised employment bill. There's no ban on fire and rehire, no end to zero-hour contracts, nothing for more than 5.7 million people in low-paid or precarious work. Nothing for the 4.2 million children growing up in poverty, nothing for the 1.1 in 7 adults without access to the social care they need. And there's absolutely nothing that comes close to tackling the climate emergency. This is not building back better. This is building back for big business and bad bosses, for Tory donors and property developers. And while it's deepening economic inequality, it's also attacking our democratic rights. The Electoral Reform Society has called the government's voter ID plans, and I quote, dangerous, misguided, and undemocratic. This isn't about stopping voter fraud. This is about voter suppression. It's about stopping young people. It's about stopping black and ethnic minority people. And it's about stopping poorer people from voting. In short, people who are less likely to be voting for this government in the first place. And if we don't like this, well, the police crackdown bill represents an unprecedented attack on our right to protest. And groups like Liberty have warned this. So if the government gets its way, not only are people being disenfranchised, even our right to protest has been curtailed. Madam Deputy Speaker, this past year we have seen that it's not millionaire bankers or hedge fund managers who keep society going. It's our nurses, it's cleaners, it's teachers, it's shop assistants, it's taxi drivers, it's bus drivers. It's the working class in all of our diversity. And it's about time we built a society run by and for them. Thank you.